So here we go again. In all seriousness, this feels like the Justice Democrats fiasco all over again. I'm sure most of you know the situation that led to me leaving Justice Democrats. Long story short, people on the right dug up old blogs of Cenk saying politically incorrect stuff, and then they smeared him with it, and it blew up in the news. And then there was a mutiny among the Justice Democrat staff, and basically they said either he goes or we go. And the staffers are everything when it comes to Justice Democrats, so Cenk willingly stepped down and said, listen, I don't want the fact that I said some bad stuff when I was younger, I don't want that to kneecap what we're trying to do here, which is bring about real change and get candidates elected who support Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and ending the wars, so on and so forth. So he put aside his own ego and he said, the movement's bigger than me, so if the ultimatum is either I go or the entire staff goes, I'm going to go. Now, at that time, I was a co-founder of Justice Democrats along with Cenk, and so I was still on the board and part of leadership. And, the more I dwelled on it, the more it didn't sit right with me. And so I resigned from the board in solidarity with him. Because I also didn't want people getting the wrong idea thinking that, I was the one who got rid of him or whatever. Because, no, I don't... if he said something or did something that was wrong in the past, or it was edgy or politically incorrect or whatever it was, to me that has no bearing on whether or not he would be a good leader fighting for the policies to improve everybody's life today, especially since he had deleted a lot of old blogs that he didn't agree with anymore, and he's apologized for them profusely. So that's what happened in Justice Democrats in 2017. That's the Cliff Notes version. And now with Cenk running for Congress, I'm getting flashbacks to exactly that fiasco, because what happened recently is the great Ro Khanna and the great Nina Turner endorsed Cenk. And, listen, they're serious people who care about fixing this country, getting rid of the corruption, giving everybody health care and college and eliminating student debt and all that stuff. These are serious people with serious goals. And they know that Cenk is going to fight for those goals, regardless of anything he's ever said in the past or anything politically incorrect he's believed or whatever it might be. They know this guy's a fighter and he's going to fight for the people. So they endorsed him. To my surprise, actually, because I didn't know if it was even brought to his attention or if he was aware of the race or whatever it might be. But a day or two later, Bernie Sanders endorsed Cenk Uygur. I was genuinely surprised by that, and I was very happy about that. Because the first thing that popped in my mind was, wow, Cenk has said stuff in the past that there's been endless smear articles about, and one would think, a cautious politician might, just take a hands-off approach and I don't know, maybe say something behind the scenes to Cenk, like, hey man, I wish you well, but for reasons X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to publicly endorse or whatever it might be. But no, Bernie Sanders endorsed Cenk Uygur, which is awesome. Obviously, Cenk was super excited about that because this is a guy who Cenk has admired massively for so long, because this is one of the only real populist, anti-establishment, anti-corruption crusaders who've been fighting for the people for so long. So, today we got the news that Cenk tweeted. Well, actually, let me rewind a little bit, because what happened first is, after the Bernie endorsement of Cenk, boom, the smear articles start popping up again. Well, that's weird. Actually, it's not weird, because what a lot of you guys might know because you watch this show all the time, but others might not know, is there is a highly organized effort to take down left-wing candidates. I mean extremely organized. I mean a network of coordinated neoliberal, corporatist, centrist Democrats whose sole jobs, in many respects, are to go after lefty candidates, undermine them, smear them, try to take them down by any means necessary. So the smear articles started popping back up immediately after the Bernie endorsement of Cenk. And earlier today, the LA Times tweeted, you guys are going to love this one. Bernie Sanders endorses Californian who defends crude sex ratings of women. Okay, they're simply referring to, like, back in the day, really long time ago, probably like around 2008 or so, they used to do kind of like a hot or not type segment where it was like, you know, Cenk gives his list of, like, who he thinks are the top 10 hottest celebrities, and then Anna would do the same. I don't know if Anna was actually working there at the time. It may have been Jill Pike who worked there before Anna. I don't know the specifics. But this was, you know, old school TYT. It's if you've been watching TYT for a long time, you know that this is what they did. It's not controversial or anything. This is just what people did. But look at how they categorize that. Bernie Sanders endorses Californian who defends crude sex ratings of women. That's how they wrote a headline about that. Now, we're talking about a guy here, Cenk Uygur, who built a giant progressive online network from the ground up. He co-founded Justice Democrats, which of course helped get AOC elected, Ilhan Omar, and others. He made tremendous gains in getting money out of politics with Wolfpack, because they've gotten that resolution through a bunch of states. So we have, by any objective criteria, like a strong left-wing leader who has real accomplishments under his belt. But they decided to describe him as a Californian who defends crude sex ratings of women. Now, that's not it. There's also 1,000 other smear articles that are popping up. You know, sometimes they take things out of context. Sometimes they're not out of context, but they're things that Cenk no longer believes. But the general underlying meaning is, oh my God, isn't this guy a sexist? In some cases now they're trying to say he's racist, because there were times on the show that he used the N-word in context of a story where he would be like reading it in a story. He's not saying it. He's not saying it. He's not calling anybody it. He's saying it's in the story, I'm going to say it. Or he would say it because somebody else said it, and so he's parroting it, that person, like pretending to be that person. In no context did he actually say it himself. You understand what I'm saying? Context is everything. It's not just that context matters. Context is everything. And they totally ignore all the context, and they're just like, no, he's like a racist, sexist, misogynist, you know, evil guy, irredeemable. By the way, they also act like he hasn't apologized for half the stuff, which he has 4, 5, 6 times, okay? So even if you're inclined to say, no, a lot of the stuff he said was bad, fine, you're entitled to that opinion. But guess what? He apologized for the stuff that was actually bad. Multiple times over. So they run all these articles. Now I'm looking at it, and I'm slightly amused, because it's like, you know, we've seen this playbook before. Like, you know, wake up everybody, this was 2017, and it's just revisiting 2017 all over again. We already know all this stuff. Everybody in the progressive movement knows all this stuff. And so we look at it and we're like, yeah, we know. We know that that's the case. Who's this guy now? This guy is a fighter for all the policies that would improve everybody's life. So to us, it's like, okay, well, it's obvious what they're trying to do. They're just trying to take him down. They're just trying to they're getting 2 smears for the price of 1. The smear of Bernie Sanders, because Bernie endorsed him, and the smear of Cenk Uygur. So, and this is why they're doing it. They're running with that narrative, running with that narrative, running with that narrative. Now, then we get the news, Bernie unendorses Cenk. Now, I want to read for you exactly what he said here. He says, Cenk Uygur has been a longtime fighter against corruption. However, our movement is bigger than any one person. I hear my supporters who are frustrated and understand their concerns. Cenk today said he is rejecting all endorsements from his campaign, and I retract my endorsement. Now, I'm sure stuff was going on behind the scenes. I don't know exactly what was going on behind the scenes, but what Bernie's alluding to there is true. Cenk did this tweet storm. Let's see if I could find it and just give you the gist of it. Where Cenk said, you know, listen, I appreciate all the endorsements. Here we go. My job is to represent the voters and the voters alone. The only endorsements I'll be accepting going forward is the voters of California 25. That was actually one of the last tweets in his thread. So let me go to the first one. Okay, the first one. This is the one that I think is the most important. He says, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the endorsements of Bernie, Rokon, and Nina Turner and local progressive groups that gave me their support. Their stance took real courage in the face of the corporate media and Democratic establishment onslaught. I want to be free of any influence other than the voters of California 25. I will not be beholden to corporations, lobbyists, or special interest groups, and I will not stand by while those groups attack my political allies. That's why I have decided that I will not be accepting any endorsements. And then he says, my job is to represent the voters and the voters alone. The only endorsements I'll be accepting going forward is that of the voters of California 25. So, now I know Cenk, and I was right there with him in the trenches in 2017 when the whole Justice Democrats thing happened. And what I can tell you is, that's actually him. He would not hesitate for a second to say, you know what, man? If you got to amputate the arm to save the body, by all means. You got to unendorse me, not be associated with me for reasons X, Y, or Z. I totally get it, because I'm not going to have my presence poison the progressive movement in the sense that it makes us less likely to achieve our goals. So yet again, this is an instance of him putting his ego aside and saying, you know what, I'm not going to accept any endorsements, and, I'm basically, I'm going at it alone. Fine. You want me to go at it alone? I'll go at it alone. So you got to give him tremendous credit for that. And then Bernie did that tweet where he unendorses him. Now, here's my speculation, and this is speculation. My guess is in the same way that we had a mutiny on the staff at Justice Democrats, where they said, it's him or us. My guess is there was a similar situation like that with Bernie behind the scenes. I do not think Bernie would have thrown Cenk under the bus unless he felt like, I literally have no choice. And so my guess is it was a similar circumstance with Bernie Sanders. Now again, this is speculation. I have no idea if it happened, and if it did happen, I have no idea if it was his staff or maybe, other endorsements that Bernie had already gotten, that maybe those endorsements, they were going to retract it because they fell for the smears. But here's what we know. The smear merchants won. Now let me explain to everybody why this was handled the exact wrong way, and this is why the left loses. So when somebody runs a smear article against you, what's that? Okay, that's a news cycle right there. So the smear article's out there. It's a news cycle in and of itself. People will talk about it. It'll generate interest. It'll generate clicks. And then what happens? After a while, it goes away. Could be a day, could be 2 days. If it's a really big story, 3 days. But it gets in the news cycle and out of the news cycle. What happens if you decide, I'm going to validate the smear? And I'm going to say, whoa. You know what? You're right. It's really bad. That was really bad. So now, yes, bad man, I'm unendorsing. Now what happens? You just breathed life into the story. Instead of one news cycle about how evil and terrible Cenk Uygur is, now there's 2. So it went from a 2-day affair, let's say, to a 4-day affair. So mathematically speaking, it is a terrible strategy because it gives your opponents exactly what they want, which is negative noise around you. So let's say we went another direction, and let's say Bernie didn't unendorse, nobody said anything, and the only mentions of these smear articles were people pushing back, which, by the way, I was planning on doing on my show on Monday. I was going to push back against these smears. Well, in that case, the smear goes away quicker. In that case, if somebody fights back in a correct manner, you quell the problem. You let everybody know, hey, this is nonsense. This is BS. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why it's BS. I'm going to explain to you exactly why this is fake outrage. This is faux outrage. This is overly politically correct nonsense. They don't actually believe this. You think the people who wrote that article in the LA Times, do you think the people who wrote that are actually concerned about what Cenk may or may not have done in 2008 when he did like hot or not segments? By the way, you know who else did a hot or not segment? Hillary Clinton. Were there ever articles saying, oh, Hillary Clinton did crude sex ratings? Of course they didn't do that. Why? Because they like Hillary Clinton. They don't like Cenk. So that's why they're doing it against Cenk and using it as a negative. They're not actually concerned about anything he's ever said in the past. They don't think any of this is actually out of bounds or he actually is a monster or any of that. It is a trick. It is a trick. And it's a trick that people on the left always fall for. Because they mess 2 things up. They think that being principled means doing circular firing squads and throwing everybody under the bus. That's not what being principled is. What being principled is saying, if you're with me on the actual policy, if you're with me on trying to fix the system, if you believe in Medicare for all, free college, living wage, end the wars, Green New Deal, legalize marijuana, free all the nonviolent drug offenders, so on and so forth, if you agree with me on all that stuff, then you're my ally. And we believe in redemption. If you had said stuff in the past, if you're watching this right now and you've said stuff in the past, that, because who hasn't? We've all said dumb things. We've all been stupid. We've all said things we don't believe anymore. We all be mortified if you go back just 5 years in the past and look at the things you said and the things you believed and the company you kept and all that stuff. We all look back and have regrets. They're conflating being principled with being overly politically correct, faux outrage, circular firing squad losers. There's nothing more moral or more pure about saying, you said bad things, so now we can't be associated with you. There's nothing that's like above the fray or fighting for justice about that. No, if anything, you're undermining the own goals that you claim to have. Because you're never going to win if you don't come together around common goals. And this is why I think Bernie got this wrong. This is why I think everybody on the left who's mad at Cenk for this stuff is totally missing the point, is because you're validating the smears and you're undermining yourself and you're doing a circular firing squad. And let me tell you something. If you think that with this kind of mindset, we're ever going to get Medicare for all, we're ever going to get free college, we're ever going to get a living wage, you're crazy. Because this is divide and conquer. And guess what? It worked. They divided and they conquered. That's the sad reality. So as much as I love Bernie Sanders, the movement gets nowhere if you throw people under the bus based on bad faith, out of context smear jobs. And this is extremely disappointing. Now, I will say this, again, we don't know all the facts, and we might never know all the facts. All the facts might never come out. I really, in my heart of hearts, don't think Bernie would have thrown Cenk under the bus unless his arm was twisted and he was in a corner and he had no way out. We have no idea what went on behind the scenes. We have no idea the kind of pressure that was put on him. We have no idea if there was going to be a mutiny. Because listen, I was literally in the room when this happened before with Justice Democrats. And I told you, I'm an open book. I told you guys everything about that. Everything. And we had an ultimatum and there was no way out. And we did the best thing that we think we could have done. You can't get rid of the whole staff. That's the heart and soul. These are the workers. These are the people who do the day-to-day. I don't do the day-to-day. I got my show to run. So we had no choice. And we said, listen, we disagree with you on this, but we love and respect you. So, okay, we're going to listen. Cenk's going to step down, and then I step down in solidarity. It's very possible Bernie Sanders was in a similar situation. And it's very possible that it was, it was a mutiny. Again, I don't know. I don't have any information you don't have, but it's possible it was a mutiny from his staff. It's possible it was a mutiny from people who were going to endorse him, and now they say, we're not going to endorse you. Or, even worse, people who say, we'll retract our endorsement. How you like them apples? Or whatever it might be. But either way, this is the exact wrong way to handle it. And again, I just want everybody to know, I'm not giving my opinion here. These are facts. And I'm going based off the facts on what I know works in crisis situations because we've seen it before. We've seen the playbook. We know what fails and we know what works. The last thing you should ever do is breathe life into the smear, validate the smear. Now it goes from 1 news cycle to 2, and now it's more time, in the news so that people can see it and get more mad at you, and you fed the story even further. But again, more importantly, if you're going to throw everybody under the bus based on out-of-context smear jobs, and you're going to throw people under the bus based on politically incorrect things they said in the past, and based on fake outrage, then we're never going to get anywhere, and the left is never going to win. So listen, man, today is a very sad day. I'm not happy today at all. And what I want everybody to do if you're watching this right now, go donate to Cenk Uyghur's campaign. Go donate to Cenk Uyghur's campaign, because he's going to have to do this on his own. He's going to have to do this on his own. And we got to get him over that line. I don't live in California's 25th district, but for those of you that do, you better go out and vote for him. There's a reason why the establishment and the corporatists have to stoop to this low level to dig up things that happened 10 years ago, things he said 10 years ago, blogs he wrote, in some cases, 20 years ago. There's a reason why they have to go to that. Because they cannot beat him on the ideas. They can't beat him on Medicare for all or free college or a living wage or ending the wars or a Green New Deal or ending the corruption, which is his #1 issue. And they know he's going to be a leader in Congress where he's going to call out the corporatists and he's not going to take any nonsense. And he's going to fight for you. And he's going to shift the Overton window. They know that that's the case. They know that that's the case. So they're breaking out all the stops, all the fake outrage stops. And here we are. And unfortunately, many people on the left either fell for the trick or didn't fall for it, but gave in to the smears and validated them. And I'm just upset, man. I'm upset. We're never going to win this way. We're never going to win this way. And again, if you want to call yourself a lefty and you don't believe in redemption, not much of a lefty, are you? That's a very, very hard right authoritarian trait now, isn't it? So I'm really sad today. But go donate to Cenk. Let's get something positive out of this. Hopefully he can break a fundraising record, and then they have to write headlines about that. Although they probably won't even in that situation. This just hardens my resolve to get him elected. Really disappointed in Bernie today. And, I want Cenk to know, I'm sorry, man, and I'm here with you, and we're going to do whatever we can to try to get you elected.